Excellent. All right. Okay. Well, all good to go right now. So let's talk about purpose, right? That's the whole point here. Evidently, this is something that we are all interested in. This is something that gnaws at us from the inside of us. At some point in time, you probably have asked the question, or whether it's conscious or if you haven't, I guarantee you at some point in time, you're going to ask the question about why am I here? Who am I as a person? What does it mean to be a human being? Like how do I fit into what's happening in the world? Why am I born in this, season at a time like this? You have questions about destiny. Where does this all end? What's the end goal of life? And all of these questions are important questions in life. These are, questions of purpose, questions of identity, questions of destiny. And I read a quote once that said, two most important dates in a person's life, or days in a person's life, is one, the day they were born, and second is the day they figure out why they were born. See, our culture is so obsessed with success, and it's nothing wrong. It's in our DNA as human beings, the idea of wanting to succeed, right? It's by design, right? People fake success. People want to associate with success. You want to be successful. You are happy when you are successful, right? You put together a to-do list, you bang out that list in a day, you feel like you've accomplished something. You set a goal for yourself and you hit that, you feel like you've actually accomplished something. So there's something on the inside of us that craves the recognition that comes from success, right? And if you really look at success in its most fundamental basic definition, what is success? Success is the achievement of goals, right? But the question that we ought to ask ourselves is, whose goals are we achieving, right? True success is really found when we actually pursue the right path, pursue the right goals. One of the things that we see in society today is, because of this need to feel successful, this need to actualize something on the inside of us, people are engaged in all kinds of activities that would bring them some sort of personal recognition, and get some sort of benefits that would accrue back to them. And people are doing all kinds of things, and there's sort of this idea of pursuing happiness, the pursuit of happiness. And if you've lived on this earth for any length of time, you would find that the concept of pursuing happiness is very elusive. It's like the moment you achieve something that you think makes you happy, guess what happens? You have this short-lived happiness, and you're looking for the very next thing to make you happy. And think about what the definition of happiness is. It's really, it's circumstantial, right? It's based on what's happening around you. So therefore, you're happy, right? But think about it, right? If I'm pursuing something that is not just circumstantial, that's not just based off of short-term goals, but something that's bigger, something that's more eternal, right? Then I have a sense of satisfaction that's on the inside of me. And that's really what the pursuit of purpose is all about. So true success in life is about pursuing purpose, because ultimately your life has a purpose. The goal of your life, the destiny of your life is tied in your purpose. So when you pursue purpose, you're pursuing true success in life. And that's where you really would find the satisfaction that we're looking for. That's when you really begin to get the sense of joy that you're looking for. I tell people all the time when I'm having a conversation on purpose, right? A lot of times people say things like, do what makes you happy, follow your passions, etc. And I say to people that the path of purpose isn't necessarily a path of happiness, right? Happiness is not the end goal of purpose, right? And what then happens is, if you sort of optimize your life for happiness, what happens is that you would avoid pathways, you would avoid circumstances, you would avoid situations that ultimately may be on the path of purpose, right? But you're maximizing for pleasure, you're maximizing for comfort, right? And that's what you're optimizing for. And you might actually avoid situations that actually lead you down the path of purpose. But when you're working, you're walking your way, and you're working hard on the path of purpose, even though there are difficulties, like, you can triumph over those challenges, over those difficulties, because you're doing something that is bigger than you as an individual. You're aspiring to something that is greater than you. And in doing that, in fulfilling that, you actually have a sense of satisfaction, and you actually have some joy. I like a quote that I read by Martin Luther King. It says, "We are prone to judge success by the index of our salaries or the size of our automobiles, rather than by the quality of our service and relationship to mankind. I think that's a very powerful quote. And think about what it's saying. If everything we do in life is about how can I get a bigger house, how can I buy a nicer car, how can I buy a nicer this or nicer that, and those then become our markers for success or markers for relevance in life, then if all that exists in this world is all that we see in this material universe, then maybe that's fine, right? But that's not consistent with human behavior. You see, as human beings, we aspire to leave a legacy. We're looking to have something that we've done outlive our existence here on earth. And that suggests to us that there is a higher purpose that exists for your life. And it's really not just about achieving goals and having all these material markers here and all these accolades that you can get from people that suggest to you culturally that you are successful. There's a book by Simon Sinek, a great author, a man that I respect so much. And he says this in his book, Start With Why. And the whole thesis of the book is the idea that companies that have a why, that is, they have a reason, they have something that motivates their actions and their activities. Companies that start with why tend to do better, in a business environment for a long period of time. And it's the same message to us as people. For those of us, when you have a why for your life, when you discover the reason for your existence, then life is sweeter, life is better, life is more fulfilling, and life feels a whole lot more successful. So all of that's a preamble to what it is that we're going to be talking about today. So let's dive right into the understanding of the nature of purpose. Now, I've said this over and over and over again. Every single person has a purpose in life. And purpose by definition is the reason for why something exists. Every human being has that seed of purpose that's planted on the inside of them. Now, if you ask anyone here, what is the purpose of humankind? People are going to drop all kinds of things. Now, as you're hearing this, I want you to do this. Just like drop your thoughts. What is purpose? Drop it right now in the chat room. Just put it out there so that, let everyone see what you're talking about. What is purpose? And one of the things that you hear consistently is, the purpose of life is, of life is to love people, to be kind to people, to create peaceful, harmonious communities. And people sort of go through all these beautiful ideas of what life and community looks like. People will say, purpose of life is to serve God, is to worship Him, is to, to express the beauty of God, all of these things. And, all these ideas on purpose are 100% true. I agree with them. See, but we have to ask ourselves the question, where do these ideas come from? Where does this whole mentality about beauty, about flourishing communities, about peace and harmony in our interpersonal relationships, where does all of that come from? And that's what we have to explore. And what I like to challenge us is that in having this discussion on purpose, what I say is that any discussion on purpose has to coherently answer a few questions. There has to be a coherent relationship on the question of the identity of humankind, the source of humanity, the intent of the one, who created humanity, and also a coherent response on why human beings are the way they are. And let's step back and let's talk about this a little bit. You see, you can never understand the purpose of a thing by observing the thing in itself. And I want you to think about that. If you've never seen some invention or some contraption, like take, for example, a TV, right? Or a refrigerator, a small bedroom refrigerators, those little ones that you see in a hotel. If you've never seen any of those before, right, you really can't understand what it's there for, right? You can see like, okay, it has these, you can see that it has a certain design elements, right? It may have, it may have like a flat surface, it cools on the inside. You can examine all those things, right? But you can't necessarily understand what it is by observing those things, right? The best way for you to find out what that thing is made for is by going back to the manufacturer and asking the question, why did you make this thing? It's the exact same thing with human life. And the question of purpose, by definition, it's the reason why something was made or why it exists. Now, if there is a reason why something was made or why something exists, it invites us to consider the fact that there was something or someone that made something. It invites us to consider the idea that there exists a creator who has made something. And not only is there a creator who has made something, it also helps us to see that that creator had intent or had a purpose for that which was created. And then the next thing that you have to then consider is that purpose precedes design, right? Because based off of what I expect this thing to do, I'm going to give it certain design elements. I'm going to give it the ability. So talking about the refrigerator, it has to have capacity to, take what it's supposed to be cooling, whether it's, biological specimens, whether it's drinks, whether it's food. It has to be designed for that. It has to have what would keep the heat on the outside and what would keep the coolness on the inside. All of these are design elements. Likewise, the exact same thing with human beings. Oftentimes, the conversation on purpose starts with people talking about passions, about your giftings, your abilities, all of those things. Now, all of those things are able to inform us a little bit, but they don't necessarily answer the question on why. Right? Because those things are unique attributes about the design of an individual, but those things don't necessarily tell us the why for that individual's life. Now, going back to the conversation on success, I tell people as well, and I preach this, that, success leaves clues, right? You can study a successful person, you can study a role model, right? Read a biography. Biography gives you a vocabulary of success. I love those types of things. You might be able to observe the attributes of that person. Maybe you say, I have a similar personality to that person. I have similar skill sets as that person. I'm the same height, I'm from the same background, very similar experiences. You might be able to copy all of those things, but you can't copy the why, the purpose behind that person's life. See, because each person's purpose is as unique as a fingerprint. Twins, identical twins born in the same womb, same experiences, same physical attributes, etc., same, source. They come out and they have two separate fingerprints. It's the exact same thing with you as well, that your abilities are unique to you, your passions are unique to you, they are combined in certain ways, but your purpose is ultimately unique, and it's what dictates how your abilities, your passions, your experiences ultimately come into play in your life. And it's important for you to understand all of that. So you start out here and you ask yourself the question, what are the design elements of human life? So let's talk about that a little bit more. Human beings, by design, have a desire to organize our environment. We have a desire to bring control and to bring our environment to respond to our desires. We have a desire to express beauty. We have a desire to appreciate beauty, to live in peace, to love one another, to live in harmony with one another. All of these things are things that make us uniquely human, right? As human beings, right? Now, as a human being, you're not a human being because you have flesh or because you can communicate. That doesn't make you uniquely human, right? You're not a human being because you can think. Your intellectual capabilities doesn't make you uniquely human, right? Because there are machines, there's artificial intelligence right now that can think, can probably make better decisions than you can make decisions, right? But you're a human being because there's something immaterial about you. This concept of love, this concept of peace, this concept of administration, control, dominion, the desire to want to be able to subject our environment to our will. All of these things are innate, immaterial experiences or attributes that we have. They're not physical, right? So I say this, that human beings are firstly spiritual, right? We're spiritual, that our identity, our sense of personhood is spiritual. It's not limited to this material universe, our material existence. And what that simply means is that I can't measure love. I can't measure peace. I can't measure my desire to, control my environment. I can't measure organizing communities and things like this. These things are immaterial. I know they exist, right? And I can see them in expression, but I can't put an instrument to measure it. Physics can't actually measure it, right? So I can't, the study of love or of organizational dynamics or community formation or cultural dynamics, all of these things are not a study of physics, right? So I can't use physics to measure those things. So that means that these things exist outside of our material experience. It's a spiritual experience. So our true identity as human beings is spiritual. So I say to people that as human beings, we're spiritual beings, we're free moral spiritual beings, meaning that we have the ability to choose and make decisions, right? We have a will that we can exercise. So free moral spiritual beings with intellectual and relational capabilities that are wrapped up in human flesh. And that's who we are as human beings, right? So we have this immaterial portion of us. We have the desire to relate with people. We have the ability and capacity to think and to be intellectual. And then we have this flesh that we see. That's who we are. Now, if you think back about what it is that I'm saying right over here, if I wanted to trace back my physical lineage, I will look at biology and I will look at DNA, and it traces back and it gives me history about my biological lineage. But if I'm also going to be tracing back my spiritual lineage, right, then I have to look back. And if there is one who created you with intent, right, for a reason, for a purpose that gave you certain desires, that means the attributes that you express come from a source, right? And I say this source is God, that God created you in his image and after his likeness. Now, because you are spiritual in nature, that means God indeed is spiritual as well in nature. Because you have relational capabilities as well, that means God has relational capabilities as well. Because you have intellectual capabilities as well, that means God has intellectual capabilities as well. So I say that to just create the framework for you that God isn't a force, right? God isn't an idea, isn't a great mind, but he is also spiritual, intellectual, relational, and very personal being that exists. And he created you, or created humankind, for a purpose to be expressed. And then it makes sense that if I, as a human being, or if collectively as human beings, we desire order, we desire community, we desire love, we desire peace, we desire harmony, we desire to express beauty, we appreciate beauty, we appreciate art, we want to take our environment and we want to conform it to our thoughts, to our ideas, to how we view the world. We see these things, we have a sense of justice, we want to make the world right. That means that there is a God who has placed that on the inside of us. And because we all tend to have this desire, that means as human beings, there is a universal purpose, right? So we've examined the identity of man, we've examined the nature of purpose in man, we've examined the design attributes of human beings overall. So we have to ask ourselves the question, what is the overarching purpose of humanity? And I say that the overarching purpose of humanity is to create a flourishing community, is to create a world that represents heaven on earth, is to create a world where there is peace, where there is harmony, and all of these are all God ideas. And God had created human beings to be a partner with him in spreading this heavenly ideal across the earth. That is the universal purpose of human beings. Now, when you now talk about finding your own purpose, it's really a conversation about understanding how do you as an individual fit into that overarching purpose on earth. Now, think about it. There's a story that's told. I've heard this many times about 3 different people who were working. I actually don't even remember how the story goes, but it says that you ask one person, and I think there were 3 different bricklayers. One bricklayer said, I'm laying the bricks because I'm told to just put the bricks over here. Well, no sense of purpose, I'm just putting the bricks together. The other person says, I'm laying the bricks because I'm building a wall, right? I'm supposed to put up a wall here, right? Okay, has a bigger picture about what his activity is to be about. But then there's one bricklayer who's putting the bricks together, and he says, what are you doing? And this person says, I'm building a cathedral. That's a higher sense of purpose. That's a different view about what that person's activity is. And I like to say the same thing to you as well. If you think about a person who's building a home, building a house, building a cathedral, building a tower, right? The vision is to build a beautiful cathedral. I was in Barcelona a couple months ago, and there's a cathedral that they've been building for over 100 years right now. It's called the Sagrada Familia. It's been in construction for, I think, close to a century right now. Now, it is grand. You should Google it. It's called Sagrada Familia. It is grand. It is beautiful. And the architect who started this design, he had a vision, right, of what this cathedral would be about. But as you go and you walk through that cathedral, you see all kinds of things. You see stained glass, you see bells, you see carpets, you see pews, you see concrete work, you see limestone work, you see all kinds of things. Now, it's the same thing with life. God is building a beautiful universe, and he has invited us as human beings to be co-laborers with him in creating this heavenly experience here on earth. You are like that carpenter, you are like that plumber, you are like that scaffolding person, like the person who's laying the floors, you know, or you're like the artist who's creating the stained glass in the cathedral. And that's how you have to see yourself, because at different points in time, I need different skill sets. I need different traits to come into play as I'm building this cathedral. So as you think about yourself, the question of what my purpose is a question on how do I fit into the global purpose or into the universal purpose that God has here on earth. And that's where you really would find relevance. So you have been born into a season, into a stage in the progression of human society, of God's plan upon this earth for this relevant season. You have something to do in this season. You have something to do at this particular time. And that's what your purpose is. You know, I make this joke a lot when I'm talking about purpose. I say, you know, we're all so drawn to superhero movies. Well, maybe I shouldn't say we're all, but I am so drawn to superhero movies. I've seen many of them, many superhero movies. And you know what's so funny about it? They all follow the same narrative arc. It's usually some guy, you know, in some sort of state of equilibrium, in some community where everything's dandy, it's nice and pretty, you know, he's walking down the road, or she's fetching water, or she's like cutting flowers. It's like a pretty scene, you know, something nice and beautiful like that. And then all of a sudden, you know, we see this person manifesting some super abilities. Like, it's like, yes, I'm going to use my thoughts to garden. I'm going to use like my laser eyes to like cut bricks for the people who are building a building, or, you know, it's like you're doing something. It's all smiles. It's like it's all mundane use of their superpowers. And then all of a sudden, there's like a villain that's introduced into the situation. And this villain kind of disrupts the status quo. And then you find this person who's been using their powers to, like, you know, do gardening, or to, like, you know, bring cats out of trees, or, like, you know, simple things like that. And there's something unique about that person that actually is what's needed to be able to take down that villain that's disrupting the state of equilibrium in that person's environment. And that person sort of goes through this identity crisis. It's like, no, it can't be. I'm just a regular guy, or I'm just a regular girl. I'm just like fetching water. You know, it can't be. And you just kind of see that struggle happen. And then all of a sudden, something really bad happens that kind of wakens this person up. And it's like, you know what? I have to do something about it. Right? And that person wakes up, does something about it, and, you know, it's like a happy ending all over again. Now, that's the general, you know, narrative arc of like a superhero movie. Now, you can tweak it here and there, you can change things here and there, but it just sort of follows the same progression. I see it, and every time I watch another one, it still impresses me. What is it about those stories that really resonates with us? What is it about a kid that feels like, I watch Batman, or I watch Superman, or I watch Wonder Woman, but I want to do this, and I certainly want to do the same things that they're doing. There's something that we as human beings find so fascinating in that. And that is because there is the seed of purpose on the inside of us. It's that seed of purpose that's yearning for expression. It is the fact that you are a superhero in the script that God is writing in human history. And in your own personal script, you are the superhero. And God needs you to wake up to that reality and express that reality and bring beauty to life, solve a problem that is global in nature, right? And this is me just thinking big. It doesn't have to be that. It can be you really just doing what it is that you have been called to do. It could be big, it could be small, but at least you finding your place in that story, in that unfolding plan that God has for human society, and you doing what it is that you're supposed to do as a part of that experience. So that's the nature of purpose. That's understanding purpose, right? So, you have to, so that has to sit with you, that has to resonate with you, and that's important in understanding purpose, right? And that's why as people, when we look at our lives, we want to do something that outlives us. I said this earlier. We're just not, our behavior is not such that we're like, YOLO, enjoy this life, I'm done with it, and boom, I'm out. No, we want to leave a legacy. We want people to remember us. We want people to have fun memories about us. When a person passes, we think about the impact that they've had in our lives. And I say to people that the greatest impact that you can ever make is to not have your tombstone written in a big building, or in some huge monument, but it's to have your tombstone written in the hearts of men. Is what happens. What do the people around you say about you because you lived on this earth? Think about people who, have come up with inventions, that have progressed human society. Think about the people who invented the internet. Think about people who invented the light bulb. Think about people who created art, like the one that's behind me, created this camera. Like, these are people who have done things that have made life easier. It has made it easy for us to really live in community. It has made it easier for us to express love, to express ourselves to society. And all of these things are expressions of purposes, expressions of God's design. Now, I can really just imagine what God's ultimate ideal is, because as society progresses, we begin to see these inventions, we begin to see this unfolding of new ideas, unfolding of new expressions, right? As people begin to live out their purpose that is unique to them. Now, as I say all of that, the thought that you're probably thinking right now is, okay, I hear that, that's all great and nice. So how do I find out my own purpose? Now, this is moving into the section on the discovery of purpose. Now, I had said something, right, that the conversation on purpose has to coherently answer the question on identity, on source, on design, and on destiny. And I think we've hit on all of that. So where do you fit into all of this that I'm talking about? Well, I like where I started, right? I said, oftentimes people start with talking about your skill sets, talk about your passions, right? Talk about your abilities, talk about your experiences in life. Those things in and of themselves don't really tell you what the purpose is. The first point is, if there is a source, one who has created you with intent, then it just makes sense to go back and ask, quote unquote, the manufacturer. Now, when I say that, people think, oh, is this getting religious? Is this, I'm not a religious person, I don't subscribe to that, etc. Some people say that, and hopefully that's not where you lean in this discussion. But even if that's what it is, it really doesn't matter, right? Because what I'm expressing to you and what I'm arguing here today is just by definition, right? There has to be a creator, right? And also by definition, if your identity is first spiritual, then there has to be a source that is first spiritual as well. And if the nature of purpose is one that's eternal, that exists beyond our material experience, then it means that it traces back to this spiritual source as well. Now, if God, who is ultimately committed to purpose, exists, then your religious or faith orientation is really irrelevant in the fulfillment of purpose. And I make that, and I say that that's really a bold statement, because some people are like, whoa, chill out there. Well, it really doesn't matter, right? Because whether you are of any faith or not, you can fulfill purpose. If you can key into this mind, if you can key into this being, if you can key into the mind of God, into the heart of God, he would happily reveal purpose to you. And what you need to do is go back and just ask the question. See, open up your heart, take some time to self-reflect, think about everything, and just say, what, reveal to me, what is my purpose? I've heard this. I want to know, what is it that I was made for? How do I fit in to the big plan? How do I fit into your plan of creating a heaven on earth, of your unfolding plan to create this beautiful a kingdom of beauty upon the earth? How do I fit in there? Reveal that unto me. And then the next thing is, you can start examining yourself, right? Start taking stock of yourself, your unique attributes, right? Because like I said, as you think about purpose, there are certain things that are unique to you, and purpose always precedes design, right? The way the way you are, what you have been made for, you uniquely as a person who might be watching, what you have been made for, you have been designed for specifically. There is a unique combination of attributes that are unique to you, that are necessary for the fulfilling of your purpose here on earth. So let's start out with your gifts. What are your innate abilities? Now, what do people say about you? What do you know about yourself that just comes naturally? You have to take stock of that, right? And just like take time to just write those things down. Like what's natural about you? People just say, oh, you're just a natural at this. You're just a natural at that. Oh, it's just so easy for me to do that. Take stock of that. Also look at your abilities, right? And these aren't necessarily innate. It just may be things that you have developed over time as a part of your experiences in life. You've just learned to develop these things, and you've cultivated them over time. What are those? What abilities do you have, right? Write those things down as well. The other thing I'll say is, what are the things that get your attention, right? And this is sort of kind of delving into this idea on what are your passions, right? What are the things that get your attention? You see them and you're like, this needs to be fixed, and it just catches, and you're just like, this needs to be fixed, right? Pay attention to those things as well, because they're indicative, right? See, what many people don't understand sometimes is that what catches your attention might not catch my attention. I might walk into the room and it just might be okay. You might walk into the room and be like, this is just not right. This shouldn't be this way, shouldn't be that way, shouldn't be this way, shouldn't be that way, right? Pay attention to those things as well. And the other thing I'll tell you about is also pay attention to your experiences. And I think this is a very interesting one that I don't think a lot of people really think through. Now, your experiences are unique to you. You might go through a series of experiences that shape your thinking, shape your perspective, etc. But if you're focused on purpose, the way you go through those experiences then become very difficult. You can find meaning. I've heard a lot about this book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, talking about how this was a Jew who was taken in one of the Nazi concentration camps, and he survived the brutal experience, right? And he talked about how in the midst of that difficulty, he was able to find meaning. It also helps with how we process our experiences in life. And you can look at those experiences, because those things are a pointer. They are shaping you for who you were actually created to be here on earth, what you're supposed to be doing here on earth. Because out of those stories, there can be things that you can bring beauty from. Out of the difficulties or even the joyous moments, you can actually bring beauty that would be a blessing overall to the people around you. So you reflect on those things. The other thing I think that would be helpful as you go down this path of looking to understand what your purpose is pay attention to what people say about you as well in all these different categories. And this is one that a lot of times that, we can fall short in, because if you really think about it, we have blind spots. We're not able to see everything about ourselves, right? And, I told you the story about the superhero. Oftentimes it's someone out there who's saying you need to do this, right? And you're not necessarily responding to what people are saying to do, right? Because again, I didn't talk about this as it pertains to identity. You see, one of the things that we see is identity can be influenced by the culture, can be influenced by our experiences, but it really shouldn't be influenced from things on the outside. It should come from within. It should be traced back to your spiritual roots, right? The thing is that if you focus on your outward experiences, focus on your outward activities, and have that be the source of your identity, once those things are disrupted and shaken, then all of a sudden you lose a sense of your personhood, or you lose a sense of your identity. So even though I'm saying you can ask people to evaluate you, what do they say about you, what abilities do they say, what do they commend you for, what experiences do they talk about? Oh, and one that I didn't talk about, what's your personality like, right? Your personality is uniquely designed for the fulfillment of your purpose as well. What do they say about you in these different areas? All these things are pointers to who you are, to what you've been created to do here on earth. Now, let me say something about personality, because a lot of times you talk about personality, people feel like it's a license for them to be nasty. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying, this is me. I'm just like, I say things directly to people. I give it to you straight. Well, then that's not consistent with what your stated value is about the purpose of humanity, right? Because I can't say things as they are, hurt someone, and then say, oh no, I believe in a community of love and peace. It just doesn't make sense. The reality is we do have personality flaws, right? But at the same time, we do have personality strengths. And any area that's a personality flaw, we should be correcting those to make sure that they don't become detrimental to this ultimate vision of creating a flourishing community of love, of peace, of harmony, and of justice. Just wanted to put that out there. It's pretty important. Now, when you take all of these things, you go through this exercise, you've prayed, and you've gone through this exercise, pay attention to what goes on the inside of you. See, because your purpose is not going to come from the outside. It's not going to come because someone tells you this is what you're supposed to be doing in life. It's something that's going to come from inside. Like your identity is traced back to your spiritual lineage, which is in God, then the source or the response or the response to the question on purpose is also going to come from God on the inside of you. And pay attention to that. Now, I want to say this because oftentimes people don't understand what I would describe the seed nature of purpose. The seed nature of purpose is the idea that your purpose is never revealed to you in one full picture. It's not, because if it was ever revealed to you in a full picture, it probably would be too big for your mind to comprehend, or you probably would be overwhelmed by it. But it's usually revealed to you as a little seed, right? It's a small idea, it's an inkling. It's a sense of, this is what I should be doing right now in this season. And then you take that and you start working that out. Now, this is going right now into the discussion about how do you fulfill purpose. Think about a seed. If you look at a tree is in a seed. But when you hold that seed in your hand, it doesn't look like a tree. It doesn't look like a forest. An entire forest is in a seed. You plant that seed, it grows, it blooms, it bears fruit. In that fruit, there are additional seeds. You plant those seeds, more trees come up, and that way you have an entire forest. So what you do is when you then begin to get this inkling of what it is that you're supposed to be doing because of the seed nature of purpose, what do? You plant that seed, you nourish that seed, you nurture that seed, you cultivate that seed, you protect it, and then you watch it bloom. But guess what? The blooming takes time. It unfolds in time. It's the exact same thing with your purpose. Start where you are. Once you get an inkling of what it is that you need to be doing, start where you are. Start doing what you know to be doing right now. You might think it's inconsequential. You might think it's not grand. You might think it's not, I just don't see how this would bring me success. Maybe that might be how you think about it right now, but that's irrelevant, right? Because ultimately your purpose is supposed to be contributing to the greater world, to the greater society, to greater communities. And your purpose is contributing to something bigger. Think about the human body, for example. Have you ever stubbed your little toe before? Your little toe seems like it's not important, right? But guess what? You stub it, your entire body feels it. If you actually lose that little toe, your balance in walking actually is not the same anymore. So what you think is little, what you think is inconsequential is a big deal. There's something on the inside of you that the world needs. There's something on the inside of you that I need, your community needs, your society needs, your sphere of influence needs. And the only way you're going to grow that and cultivate that is when you become diligent in doing the little that you know to do right now. So start there. It starts with diligence and it continues with consistency. Start doing what you know to do. The second thing I'll tell you as it pertains to a fulfilling purpose is to grow in your abilities. Cultivate your talents. So your skill set, your innate abilities, your talents, and your skills, continue to grow in them. You see, oftentimes people, we've seen a lot of videos about child prodigies who can do like these great things. But you know, a lot of people don't understand that many times we don't hear about those child prodigies again in the future. If you don't practice and strive for mastery in the area of your gift, it wouldn't matter. But when you have an ability, when you have a skill set, and you get the sense that this is a skill set that is relevant for your purpose, based on the little that you might know now, just continue to cultivate it. Learn more about it, refine it, learn more, refine it, learn more, refine it, learn more, refine it, and just consistently do that. You see, because the more you refine it, the more you refine your gift, the more you refine your ability, the more people it would attract. The more you refine your gift, the more you refine your ability, the more valuable it becomes. And purpose is ultimately about adding value to society. It's about adding value to your community. So the more value you can create in yourself because of your ability, the more value you can add to other people. All right, so the first thing I said is stay diligent, start with where you are, start with what you know. The second thing I said here is to refine your abilities, grow in your gifts, grow in your ability, grow in your skill sets, continue to train yourself in these abilities and in this skill set. The next thing I'll say as it pertains to fulfilling purpose is to have a vision. And now, this is sort of a cycle here because your vision may just be based on what you know now, right? But don't let your vision be stuck, or don't let it stop based on what you know now. Continue to challenge the boundaries of that vision. Continue to challenge and expand the boundaries of that vision. Don't limit yourself to, oh, this is what I know now, this is what I'm going to be doing right now. But ask yourself the question, how is what I am doing now, how is it relevant globally? How is it relevant to the billions of people worldwide? Now, I'm not saying that's what you have to go out to do, but at least ask yourself that question. Try to think on that scale. Because if you really think about it, you're dreaming here with God, right? God is the one who has the ultimate vision. And you have to ask yourself the question, how does this dream fit into his overall dream? And can I actually think on that level? Can I actually dream on that level? And you do that, and the more you do that, the more you begin to see the possibilities that exist as it pertains to fulfilling your purpose, the more clarity you would have in your vision, in you fulfilling purpose here upon the earth. And then the last thing I'll say is you have to commit yourself to service. At the end of the day, none of this matters if you're not serving. Because ultimately, the idea is that if purpose is a seed, it has to produce fruit. And guess what? Fruit benefits other people. That's service. It's the idea that whatever I have, whatever skill sets I have, whatever personality I have, whatever personal attributes I have, it's for the benefit of others. It's not just so I can make more money, buy a bigger house, buy a bigger car, and have my family be good. No, it's for the benefit of my community. I'm thinking about organizing society. I'm thinking about creating a world that is beautiful, not just for my family, but for the next generation and for the next generation after them. So, my challenge to you here is this. You have a great purpose in the overarching purpose that God has for humankind. There's something valuable on the inside of you. There's something that yearns for expression, and that is the seed of purpose on the inside of you. My challenge is that there is greatness in you, and I want you to birth it out. I want you to bring out that greatness. I want you to shine your light. I want to be a beneficiary of what it is that you carry on the inside of you. See, because people's destinies, people's growth, people's livelihoods, people's transformation is tied to what you carry on the inside of you. And I want you to commit right now to actually fulfilling purpose here on the earth. Now that's all I have. We're going to go into a few minutes of Q&A. But before we go in there, I just want to say this. I'm going to be starting a 6-week training. It's going to be an intensive training and mentorship session. It's going to include me and a few of my friends who have gone ahead in the area of purpose, finances, and spirituality. And it's going to be 6 weeks. It's going to be 6 Saturdays. It's going to be a couple hours every Saturday. There would be some teaching. There would be materials to dish out to you. And that you would also have personal access to people who would be able to speak into your life, who would be able to answer your questions. It would be an intimate session. There'd be more that will be coming out on that. So just wanted to let you know about that. Now, so I'm going to pause. Gosh, I feel like I just went on for so long and I was on a roll. One of the feedback from my team was to give the opportunity for people to drop emojis. Now that I'm done, give me emojis on how you feel about everything that I've said so far. Drop it in the chat section. I'm watching out for it. Drop it in the chat section. Can y'all hear me? There you go. I see fire, exclamation mark. Drop it. And while that's happening, I'm going to turn it over to Winifred to sort of coordinate the Q&A session here. And I apologize for just like breezing through all of that. I'm not taking a break. Totally forgot. All right,
Awesome. Awesome. Can we like send fire emojis, claps, emojis to just, tell Pastor Mo how much we appreciate that sessions. Those are like some serious gems. These are things that we want to be really taught in churches, or people pay thousands of dollars to hear motivational speakers talk about this, and sometimes they don't hit half of these kinds of topics or hit the core. This is a God thing, and we know that it's really those kind of things that really bring transformation through lives. So without any further ado, this is a time for Q&A. We're going to ask some questions that, from what he's spoken about, or just questions that you really have, where your finances are concerned, where your purpose is concerned, where even spiritual development is concerned. Those are kind of the 3 core areas that we want momentum to touch. So if you have any kind of questions concerning that, you can drop them in the question box. You can send them privately to me. If you're a bit shy, you can send them to the group if you want the group to see as well. We'll be monitoring that as well. So before we go on, I think one of the first questions that we have is, Mo's on the hot seat. It's COVID, it's pandemic, it's seeming to take forever. It's what's going on 3 years now. People are increasing their wealth. What should they be doing with that? People are gaining more money. They're maximizing their skills. Let's say we finish from the 6-week course and we're person 2.0 and we're earning more. What could we be doing with that money?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I teach here that money in itself is not an end, right? And it's important to be very careful about our relationship with money, because there is something about the desire to gain more that is very insidious, and can ultimately lead us down the wrong path. And so what I say is that let your quest to get more be tied to your sense of purpose, right? So as you are getting more money, as you are increasing in your earnings power, your thought process should be, how can I use these funds in furthering this vision for flourishing communities? Where am I seeing either it's something that I'm doing by myself, right? Maybe I have a sense of my purpose, and it costs money, right? It costs money to put an event like this together. It costs money to, put a class together. So it'd be nice for me to have the money to be able to pay for what it is that I'm doing right now, right? That's one way to think about it. So you can reinvest it in your pursuit to fulfill purpose, or you can find someone out there or organizations out there that are doing what it is that you believe in, and you can contribute to those causes, right? You can also take it up on yourself to be a blessing, as it were, to people who are in your community, right? How can I pay for someone's education? How can I pay for someone's rent, right? Because if you think about the way this is supposed to work, a flourishing community is supposed to work, it means that as a collective group, we become a social safety net, upholding the, the security and the safety of the weakest in our community. I mean, just think about what beautiful community that looks like. A society where everyone's doing well financially, but you can always elevate the dignity and the status of the next person out there because you have extra. Now, people may hear this and may think, oh, that's a socialist idea. No, that's not a socialist idea. This is a compassionate capitalism, right? So I believe in a profit incentive for actions, but at the same time, I don't believe that in your pursuit to get more wealth that people should be left behind.
Thank you. I think that was definitely a fantastic way to say it. And I think for the most part, I think purpose is that I think we have to remember it's a God thing. And I think I like the way you mentioned the compassionate capitalism. I think it's a new way to think about it, and I think it's definitely fantastic. The way you put it together. Another question, in terms of purpose, I guess where would you say the place of mentorship is, and having that kind of community that pushes one forward? How would you say that's important, or what role does that play in the idea of purpose and
Yeah, so that's another good question, right? When I was talking about taking stock of your unique attributes, your unique abilities, the things that make you unique, I said something about getting perspective from people who are outside, right? What do people say about you? And I think one of the most powerful voices that can be in your life are the voices of role models or the voices of mentors in your life, right? And now I want to be very clear on what it is that I'm saying, that ultimately your purpose, the response or the answer of the why for your life comes from God, because I might be able to copy, activities of people, but I can't necessarily copy the why behind people. And I think mentors, they see our blind spots. They're able to see aspects of our life, of our unique design, of our unique self that we're not able to see. And they're able to offer thoughts and offer guidance and speak into those areas as well. The other thing I would say regarding mentors is there's a quote, and I can't remember who said it. It says, it's something about standing on the shoulders of giants, right? There's something about having someone in your life who's already seen many years down the road and who's able to give you that perspective that you might not have right now, either because you don't have the experience or because you just don't have the foresight just yet. And it's very, very important to at least lend an ear to what a mentor is saying as it pertains to your life, as it pertains to your destiny, as it pertains to your plans, because that feedback is very relevant in terms of how you calibrate your own path in life. The other thing I would tell people is, some people say experience is the best teacher, and no, not necessarily. I think wisdom is the best teacher. There's a role that mentors play in offering you wisdom, right? We've all been young, we've all been sub 20 in our lives, and maybe there are people on here who are actually below 20. You think about a person who's, just shy of 20 years old, they feel like they know everything. Like, it's like, look, they want to give you counsel, they want to tell you about how things need to work, they want to tell you about how society needs to be organized, what the ideals are in life, etc. But what they lack is experience, right? But there's a place where a mentor can offer you wisdom and perspective and tell you, what, you're saying this, but there are all these other things at play that you're not seeing, and you should consider that in how you choose your response here, or in how you take action here. So all of that to say that I think they're a very vital part in your purpose path and in you pursuing that which God has called you to do here on earth.
Awesome. Thanks, Massimo. Another question that came through was about, can somebody's purpose change?
So that's that's a good question. As far as I know, I think the answer to that question is it can change. It cannot change. It won't change. And I'll use a few things to just express my answer here. Number one is think about you as a designer, you as a creator of something. When you have made something, you had an intent in mind. So at the point in which the thing is made, the intent is already established after it is made. Now, while it is still in your mind, you can change it, right? But the moment the thing is made, the purpose is established. I think it's the exact same thing with us as human beings. Once you're born, that purpose is established, right? Because we're dealing with a God who is very intentional, who is very deliberate, and that purpose is introduced. Now, the second thing I'll say that sort of speaks to this and why I would not say your purpose changes is that I said something about purpose being in a seed form. It unfolds. The nature of purpose unfolds over time. Now, human beings are, I know I have used very, very simple examples to express the idea about making a thing, right? But human beings are a whole lot more complex than a refrigerator, right? I think we all acknowledge that and we know that, right? We're a lot more complex than a refrigerator. So, we're dynamic in nature. So your purpose is your purpose, but the expressions and the manifestation of your purpose per time can change, yes. So you might be doing one thing in one season of your life that is closely tied to your purpose, and then you get into another season of your life and you're doing something different, but the overall purpose doesn't necessarily change. Now, let me give an example because, again, my views and my philosophy on purpose are based on biblical ideologies here. And I want to give an example here that has really helped me that's from the Bible. There's a story in the Bible that's told about Joseph in Genesis chapter 37. And the Bible tells us that Joseph had a dream. And in his dream, he saw they were out, him and his brothers were out and they were binding sheaves. And then he said that all of a sudden all the sheaves stood up and then the sheaves of his brothers began to bow down to his sheaves, right? And he said, he asked his brothers, like, hey guys, like, let's talk about this. What do y'all think this means? And his brothers were like, look, dude, are you nuts? Like, what are you talking about here? Are you saying that you're going to rule over us? And then it's like, and his Bible says that his brothers hated him because of that. And then he backs off. And then he's like, look, he has another dream. And this time, the sun, the moon, and the stars were bowing down to him. And he goes out, and not only does he tell his brothers, he tells his parents as well. He's like, yo, maybe they were at dinner, and the dinner table is like, yo, guys, guess what? This is what I dreamed. And Bible says that his parents and his brothers were like, dude, like, you're really getting ahead of yourself here. Now, if you think about Joseph's context then, I bet you, if you understand the way the story progresses, if you were Joseph, your father is a businessman, huge business estate, and you have that kind of dream, I bet you that the thought you're probably going to have about what your purpose is that I'm going to be the head of Jacob and Sons Enterprises. That's what you're really going to be thinking about, is I'm going to be the head of this enterprise. But nowhere in a million years would he have imagined that his ultimate purpose was not even just to be the prime minister of Egypt, and which was the greatest nation in the known world at that point in time. That wasn't really his purpose. Ultimately, his purpose was to preserve the nation of Israel so that the lineage through which the Messiah would come would be preserved. That was ultimately his purpose. But that purpose found expression through many different phases, through many different seasons of his life. But the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose there was the preservation of the Messianic line. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Pastor Mo, for that insight. There's a fantastic question that I really like that just came through. It says, what are practical ways to fulfill purpose if there's no enabling environment?
I need clarity on what the person means by if there is no enabling environment. What does that mean? Like, what are we getting at with that statement? while that response comes through, I'll just speak generally about practical ways to fulfill purpose. Like I said, you might get an inkling in your heart about what purpose is, right? And you might get an idea of what it is that you're supposed to do. Start with what you know. Start again. Purpose is for the benefit of the community around you. Your purpose in life is for the benefit of someone or the community that exists outside of your person. So then you have to take what abilities you have, and everything that's unique about you, your design, your person, and use that to be a blessing and to serve other people. So whatever it is that you know to do, start doing it right now. It might seem like it's inconsequential. I'm still waiting on the response on what is meant by there isn't an enabling environment. But you start there. You start doing what it is that you know to do. It's in the course of your doing that more clarity comes about the next step. And as it pertains to this question as well, one of the things that I'm certain about is that God is more committed to your purpose than you think you are committed to your purpose. Much more committed to your purpose. So it would be very difficult that God would introduce you into a situation, into a circumstance where you would not have at least the basic minimum to do what it is that you know, to walk in steps as it relates to you fulfilling purpose. But again, pending clarity, that's all I'll be able to say.
I mean, I guess while that response comes in, maybe an enabling environment is what propels somebody to go further into what they believe. So what if somebody is maybe, for instance, wants to be a fashion designer but has no design or fashion experience or connects, or somebody wants to be the president of the United States but doesn't have that formal education, or they want to be like the president of some kind of banking industry but is not good at mathematics, or doesn't have the connections to a high profile society, doesn't live in New York, or lives in the back of somewhere that doesn't even have a street name, but God has shown them they're going to go to the ends of the world and, for instance, preach the gospel. So I think that's what I call an enabling environment. It's something that kind of stimulates action. So what if they're saying, I can't read, but God is calling me to be a teacher. I can't, I'm a stammerer, but God is calling me to preach the gospel. I think things like that.
Okay, so you sort of, I think you answered the question and then you sort of conflicted your question in itself. So, but I think I get the point you're making. So number one, if you tell me I want to be an engineer, or I want to be a finance person, but I'm not good at math, right? So some of what you said sort of sound like things that would sound like good ideas, right? That's very different. But if you tell me that I discern in my heart after praying and taking stock that God wants me to do this, then you have the abilities on the inside of you, because it is inconceivable that one as intentional as God, who has created you for a purpose, would create you for a purpose but not equip you with the ability to fulfill that purpose. So that in itself logically is the logic breaks down there. So you may think you're not good at something, but if you believe it's in line with your purpose, then you have the ability, you just haven't cultivated that ability, right? And remember when I was talking about the unique aspects about your person, I talked about innate gifts. There are certain things that you are good at naturally, that you know that you're good at naturally, and then there are abilities that you can develop. So if there's something that is your purpose that you've discerned for a fact that this is in line with your purpose, then you have the ability. It then becomes up to you to actually cultivate that ability. Otherwise, you have aspirational hopes that are probably not in line with your purpose, right? Because you will always be equipped for what it is that you have been created. Now, I think I use the seed principle. There are certain seeds that will survive in the United States climate. There are certain seeds that will survive in a desert climate. There are certain seeds that will survive in in an environment that has a lot of water, right? Every seed thrives in the environment in which it was created for. So I personally believe it's inconceivable that you as a person introduced in an environment, introduced in society, will not have what it takes for you to thrive in the area of your purpose in that environment.
Thanks, no. Um, a final question from this perspective, unless we get something else, is, our topic today was on momentum, prioritizing purpose. When we think about age differences, a young person versus an older person, how does somebody who's young, who is maybe just new to the idea of purpose, or who's just new to discovering purpose and walking in it, how do they prioritize purpose versus somebody who is older, more advanced, is encumbered with career, has a family? How should they prioritize purpose?
Wow. So this this question. So one, I'm still young, and maybe I should do this. I'm a drop a plug. I wrote a book. It's called Young and Purposeful, and I was telling the team this morning that I'm actually going to revise. And I wrote that book 10 years ago. And someone's like, you know what, this would be like a perfect year to do a 10-year anniversary on the book. So you know what, I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to revise the book and I'm going to drop it. Young and Purposeful. It talks about how it answers this question for the young person is how do you actually get started fulfilling purpose in life? It's really everything that I've just said and you starting early. You see, because think about the analogy that I gave about a seed. One of the greatest benefits that you have is time when you're young. Because time is the currency that you invest for the fulfillment of purpose. Yourself, your abilities in time. So if you think about the hours that you have in a day, how do you allocate your time? If you spend a lot of your time hanging out, watching TV, living life and just letting loose and all these things that people say, your life is going to be a product of those things, right? Now, I'm not saying don't relax, don't enjoy yourself, etc., because all of those things are part of our human experience and it's important. But your life has to be committed for the reason to the reason for which you are in existence. A significant portion of your time and of your life has to be dedicated and devoted to that. So I want to challenge you to make sure you're making these investments in time at a young age, because the more you do it, the further along you're going to get in life if you stay consistent and you stay committed to the path of fulfilling purpose. Because you can never really, purpose isn't a destination. For as long as you have time, you'd keep on going down that path. It's a journey that unfolds with time. So it's not like a destination. It's not like, oh, once I get there, I know I've attained it, But there's a place that as long as there is life, you can keep on pushing, and doing more. Because again, remember, like a superhero is never one and done. You're God's superhero in society for the season. For a person who's older, it's never too old to start on the path of purpose, right? God is committed to fulfilling purpose. And when a person decides that they're going to commit themselves to purpose, God commits themselves to that person as well. So you can start where you're at when you're older and be like, you know what? Maybe I've lived my life all along on a different path, not focused on purpose. Maybe I've pursued my career exclusively. I've pursued making money. I've pursued women, whatever it is. And, you're saying to yourself that I actually want to lead a purposeful life right now. You can actually start right now. It's the same process. Pray to God about it. Ask the question about what's the reason for my existence. Take stock of your life and start doing the things that we talked about. Start investing in yourself. Start investing in your time. One of the things that you'd have as an older person that a younger person doesn't have is the benefit of experience. You have experiences that are, years and decades that a younger person doesn't have. All of those things are very, very important in how you fulfill purpose and how you express yourself in life. You have the benefit of wisdom. You have the benefit of knowledge that has been accumulated over the years. And all of those things can also give you an edge in you doing what it is that you were created for. So it really doesn't matter. The question is, are you going to start? Are you going to try to bring out what's on the inside of you for the benefit of those that are around you?
Thank you. Pastor Moyo, we got some clarification regarding the question about the enabling environment. So I think you kind of already answered it. So let's just spend maybe about 2 minutes kind of just providing some clarification specifically for the example provided. So it says, for instance, as an engineering student, there is no environment or there's nowhere to put into practice what you have learned in the classroom, like an internship, and you're not even financially buoyant to acquire skills. So that's the problem. The problem is you're a student. There's no place for you to kind of express the learnings that you're gaining from the classroom, and you don't have the financial capacity to really, um, create something. How?
I see. Okay, so this is somebody who's sort of saying that I'm an engineering student. I believe that my purpose is tied to invention of some sort, but I don't necessarily have the money to deploy towards that invention. Is that what I'm saying? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to categorize it. Yeah, they mentioned, they don't have a place to put into practice like an internship, and they don't have the financial
Oh,
way
okay, okay,
to
all right.
want those.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question because a lot of times this sort of ties back to the question on how your career path, and our time is far spent, so this is probably the last question that we're taking, right? Um, but the, the question on how whether your career path is your purpose path, and I don't necessarily think that the two are one and the same. I don't believe that your career path is necessarily your purpose path. It can be, right? But, again, if you listen to everything that I've said, you have to trace it starts out with identity, right? You trace your identity back to your spiritual lineage, which is in God, and God being the source of life then becomes the author of purpose, right? And it's very important that you sort of you reach back deep into God to find and get clarity about what your purpose is. Now, that's number one. I just want to put that out there. Now, number two is to the extent that you really do believe that your purpose is, around engineering, and there are certain environments that you need to sort of to put that in work. To work through and cultivate your abilities, cultivate your skill set as it relates to your purpose. Well, my challenge to you is you can cultivate your gifts. The purpose of work is to develop your abilities, right? Um, if I don't have an internship or a job in a certain environment, it doesn't mean that I can't cultivate my abilities one way or the other. These days, there are so many resources that are out there that would give me the ability to take my knowledge or to take my abilities and to start cultivating it and use it for the benefit of others. There are so many people who would read books, who would build things themselves and would offer it to companies. They would offer it to solve a problem. The key thing about work is about and purpose is about using your skills, using your abilities, using what it is that's unique about yourself to solve a problem. And that's where the focus should be versus whether someone has given you something. Now, the last thing I'll say, and I want to be careful how you hear what I'm saying, is that as it pertains to the fulfillment of purpose, the resources that you need, every seed would always draw what it needs to thrive from the environment. So I want to restate that when you have a purpose mindset and you're operating with this consciousness of living a purposeful life, I guarantee you what you need to thrive in the area of your purpose and in the area of your calling is already in the environment. It's already within you. As long as you commit yourself to fulfilling it, to cultivating your abilities, to serving your gifts, and to just being diligent with what you know right now, the right resources, the right relationships, the right people will come around so that you thrive in the area of your purpose.
Thank you, Pastor. And we just want, please spend only 2 minutes on this question. We have a final word for our time is far spent, but I think we had an interesting question from one of our audience members. It says, would we always thrive in that environment where we are supposed to fulfill purpose? Or do we stay where we think we should be and refine our skills against all odds because that's where the stories and experiences come from to help others? So I think this person is asking a question regarding adversity. So when we feel like situations are difficult, should we pivot to a new way to fulfill purpose, or should we stay there and believe God that all things working together for our good, and that ultimate adversity is going to produce for stories and examples that we can use for others in the future?
Yeah, so that's a beautiful question. I say that the path of purpose might actually lead you through adversity, it creates an experience for you that's relevant for the fulfillment of that purpose. Now, what I will say though is that there isn't a unique answer to this question that is being asked. And really, I think I want to say I don't know, right? Because the response to that question is unique to the experience that you might be going through. Because it might be the right answer might be to actually change the environment. The right answer might be to stay in the environment, because oftentimes I have seen, more often than not, people who short circuit the path to success by uprooting themselves from an environment that was thought of as being difficult. Because sometimes out of that adversity, out of that darkness, a light can come out, right? But that is a unique answer, right? Look, if you are committed to purpose, fulfilling purpose, fulfilling God's plan for your own life, I guarantee you, God is committed to you fulfilling purpose. God is more interested in your success than you think you are interested in success. So as long as you stay the course, continually checking back, making sure, looking in your heart, making sure that you are on the right path, that's the most important thing, because your pain can be indicative of you being out of line. That is true. And maybe sometimes in those types of situations, you might need to move. But at some point in time, your pain might be formative. It might be building a new strength. It might be pruning certain aspects of your character, of your personality that don't need to be there. It might be shaping you and shaping your perspective. And if you remove yourself from that situation, if that's what's going on there, then you're short-circuiting the process that's really leading you to your destiny. So it's an answer that's unique to your situation, and the only place that answer can come from is from God.
Thanks so much, Fimo. So at this point, we're going to wrap it up.